This is Jason DeBoard with the Original Prop blog. Today we're going to take a look at a Darth Vader costume up for auction with Bonhams. My main purpose with this video is to just point to some varying opinions about what this costume actually is. There's been a lot of talk about it coming up to the auction, which is taking place on May 14th in Los Angeles, which is next Tuesday as I record this. I'd been kind of waiting to see what was going to come of this costume. I know there were some people that were saying it wasn't screen used. There's people saying it's not production made, that it's a touring suit. So I wanted to allow some time to see how these opinions affected the auction listing itself without me actually doing any kind of video about it. But I think we're close enough now to where sort of all the information that's out there is probably already in place. So it's just a matter of people kind of doing their own research and coming to their own opinions and own conclusions on this. Just as a point of disclosure and transparency, I also wanted to note that I do have relationships with some of the people that I'll be citing in this video. So I'm friends with Brandon Ehlinger, who's actually put together an analysis about this costume from his experience writing the Star Wars costumes book. I'm also friends with Jez Hill, who helped Bonhams with their research on this costume. And I've actually spoken to both of them in recent months, not just about this, but about other things as well. I also have spoken with Bryce Eller, the consigner of this costume, in recent months. We've actually never talked about this specific costume, but I just wanted to make people aware of that. I've actually spoken with him quite a bit. Really nice gentleman. He actually wore costumes for promotional purposes during the original run of Star Wars, and then in between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and then to promote Empire Strikes Back, and then even Return of the Jedi. So he has a really interesting history with Star Wars and Lucasfilm. What else? I think that's kind of it. But as you know, I just want to make it clear that I talk to a lot of people, but I try to just come at this with a fresh perspective and just, report on it as I can. I do know quite a bit about the Darth Vader costume from Star Wars A New Hope, particularly the helmet. I don't know as much about The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi versions, apart from the research I did into those, trying to learn more about the one from the original Star Wars films. So that's why kind of my purpose with this video isn't really to so much share my own opinion, but to just point to varying opinions and resources and some information just so people can kind of do their own research. So this went online a few weeks ago. It's described initially in the auction description as a production-made costume. So if you don't know who Bryce Eller is, he used to go by Kermit Eller. He was really the first person who wore a Darth Vader costume for promotional purposes. He actually started doing that before Star Wars came out in 1977, and it just sort of took on a life of its own. And he actually wore the screen-used Darth Vader costume from Star Wars for several years. So it was the one that you see on screen. And then at some point, Lucasfilm asked for the Star Wars Darth Vader costume back, and they gave him one from The Empire Strikes Back, which is what's up for auction. And then that's sort of where the details come in, like what exactly is this costume? Was it made by the production? Was it used in the film? Is it seen on screen, or is it one of many promotional costumes that were explicitly made for Bryce Eller and other people to use for promotional appearances and things like that? So I'm not going to read the whole Bonhams description. It's pretty long. It gives some of that history. I do want to draw attention to an amendment to the description, which they published I think it was yesterday. It might have been the day before. It says, since publishing our catalog, additional information regarding this costume has come to light, suggesting that the mask, helmet, and shoulder armor may have been manufactured by N.G. Farmer in the UK just after completion of principal photography on The Empire Strikes Back in 1979. The firm of N.J. Farmer was hired by Lucasfilm to make a small number of promotional suits at that time. Mr. Farmer himself tells us that this is possible as these three items bear a strong similarity to his work, but that the clothing and other components were unlikely to have been made by his firm. Bryce Eller, however, remembers being issued the suit in late summer of 1979 and being told that it was an Empire Strikes Back suit, i.e., no mention of, quote, touring was ever made. Our condition report has been revised to include all of this information, and upon reflection, we've decided to amend our description and lower our estimate to $500 to $1 million. This lot, with its remarkable provenance and exquisite condition, is still one of the most remarkable pieces of Empire Strikes Back memorabilia to come to market, and it represents a rare chance to own a complete Darth Vader costume. So that's kind of their update after receiving feedback from other people that have brought more information to their attention. So you can request a condition report, and I've already downloaded that. You can see that here. And this provides 13 pages of background and additional information, some more details into the helmet in particular. And the gloves actually are being auctioned separately because the gloves that Mr. Eller kept were actually from the A New Hope costume. So they actually appear to possibly be screen-used Star Wars Darth Vader gloves. So anyway, I suggest people download this condition report. And then, so as a funny aside, I've actually seen this costume in person before. Back in 1980 at Mervyn's department store. I did an article about this back in 2007. So there was a promotional appearance of Darth Vader, and me and my sister and my mom went to Mervyn's, and you can see the Darth Vader costume, and this is actually the Darth Vader costume that's in this auction. This is me, this is my sister. This is me shaking Darth Vader's hand, which is actually Bryce Eller, who's the consigner of this piece. I actually still have the autographed photo from him, believe it or not. So that was almost 40 years ago, so it's kind of surreal. So I wanted to show a little bit of the press that this costume has been getting since it was announced, just so you kind of understand what's happening in the marketplace for prospective bidders. This article from Just Collecting, original Star Wars Darth Vader costume could fetch $2 million at Bonhams. An original Darth Vader costume from The Empire Strikes Back, etc., $2 million. It says, but the upcoming Bonhams sale is the first time a complete production-made Vader costume has ever hit the market. Here's another article from Reuters. Darth Vader costume could go for $2 million at auction. The costume going up for auction is one of a handful of Vader outfits produced in 1979 by the team of Star Wars costume designer John Mallow in London for the movie The Empire Strikes Back, Bonhams said. It is unclear if any pieces were used on screen before they were given to Eller. Here's an article from Bloomberg. Darth Vader costume from Empire Strikes Back may fetch $2 million at auction. A rare original costume of Darth Vader, one of the most iconic villains in film history, is set to be auctioned this month. There's a quote from Bonhams here. The suit's completeness, remarkable condition, and excellent provenance make it a true rarity in the memorabilia marketplace. Star Wars costume designer John Mallow made the outfit in London in 1979. Talks about his Academy Award. Here's another one from CBS Los Angeles. Original Darth Vader costume worn in Empire Strikes Back set to fetch up to $2 million at LA auction. A rare and authentic Darth Vader costume from Star Wars is set for auction this month in Los Angeles. So on Facebook, on the Movie Props group today, Brandon Ehlinger put up a post with a document that you can download from Dropbox. So I would encourage people to do that. He says, this coming week, a Darth Vader costume is up for auction with Bonhams that is allegedly, quote, production made. I researched original Star Wars costumes extensively for my book, Star Wars Costumes, the Original Trilogy. While the costume is a great piece as a genuine promotional costume from the original trilogy era, the vast majority of it is distinctly not, quote, production made. Key differences to production-made costumes indicate this piece was made specifically as a promotional costume and has numerous differences to, quote, production-made Darth Vader costumes. For those interested, here's a photo analysis of the differences I assembled. So all of the websites I've just shown you, as well as a link to this document that I'm about to go through from Brandon Ehlinger. There'll be links to all this in the original prop blog article that accompanies this video, so you can check out all this information and resources for yourself. So I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's 22 pages, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like and kind of what some of Brandon's points of information are. For me, one of the pieces of information that's most easily understood is the differences between the two helmets. The example with Bonhams and then examples from what was used in the film from historical photography, particularly with the grills. So these photos are of original film-used Empire Strikes Back helmets. So as you can see, there's one layer of these grills in this area here. And these are some more examples. More examples. You can see really clearly here. There's just one layer. So now this is a side-by-side comparison. So on the left here, this is the helmet up for auction with Bonhams, and on the right, this is one of the film-used helmets as a point of comparison. And you can see there's two layers of grills in the Bonhams example, and there's just the one layer here. So Brandon says several different styles of grills are seen in Empire Strikes Back era touring helmets. It is not clear why there are variances in the grills. Some of the helmets may have been manufactured at different times. For example, Farmer may have made a batch of helmets for touring for Return of the Jedi. Significantly, none of the touring helmets that were made use the same style of grills as the film-used helmets. This makes touring helmets immediately recognizable. The grills are very different to the grills of a screen-used helmet. This is true of the helmet currently on offer at Bonhams. The grills feature a second layer of mesh that was never seen on film-used Empire Strikes Back helmets, and the primary wider grill is itself a different style to the film-used helmets. The grill set up on the Bonhams auction helmet is never seen in the film or in Empire Strikes Back production photographs. He also takes a look at the mounting rings and the differences there, and that there's differences with the touring helmets. Also, the film-used helmets had this Velcro on the front forehead, and the Bonhams example lacks that detail or any evidence of there ever having been a Velcro there to help keep the helmet from moving. Brandon also goes into some differences with the chest boxes. If you download this document, you can see, the film used chest box. There's these little details above the blue and the red button that aren't present on the Bonhams one on the right, and some other little differences there. He also does an analysis of the belt and the boxes on the belt. The top example is the Bonhams auction piece. The bottom is a publicity photo and these match. So it looks like the costume up for auction was used for some promotional photography. But he says neither match the film used ones either in Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back. So this is an example of the Bonhams belt, which is the top example, and then a film used belt below it. And there are differences which he outlines here. So Brandon's summary, he says the following points can be made about the Bonhams auction Darth Vader costume. Touring costumes were manufactured outside of the main production and outside of the studio. The Bonhams auction costume was used by Bryce Eller for touring. The auction costume helmet is distinctly different to any version seen on screen. The auction costume chest box is distinctly different to any version seen on screen. The auction costume belt and belt boxes are distinctly different to any version seen on screen, but do appear in a promotional photograph. Therefore, one of the stronger pieces of the costume. The auction costume undergarments are not labeled with Berman's and Nathan's tags, as authentic film used or production made Vader and other character costume components are. If you're interested in doing more research on this and having a dialogue with other collectors and Star Wars fans that are really into Darth Vader costumes and details, I would recommend checking out the Prop Den. There's actually a topic about this costume on this online forum, and I'll put a link to this in the original Prop Blog article as well. But there's some good analysis here with these guys talking about this costume. And there are also some comments from Jez, who actually helped Bonhams do research on this piece. So I'd also recommend checking out the RPF, or the Replica Prop Forum. There's a topic about the gloves up for auction, but they also get into the costume. And again, there's a lot of really good analysis from various people, and they don't actually agree on everything. So I think it's a good exercise to read as much as you can and get as many different opinions as you can on this costume to figure out exactly what it is, why it was made, how it was used in the film, if at all, if it's production made, or if it was made as a touring costume. There's a lot of different opinions about that on this forum. So that's really all I had to say about this costume. I think you should just do your own research if it's something that interests you, because it doesn't seem like there's complete consensus on what exactly this costume is. So thanks for checking out my video. If you're interested in participating in the ongoing dialogue about this costume, feel free to make a comment on the original Prop blog, on this YouTube video, on the RPF, on the Prop Den, on the Movie Props Facebook group. There's discussions all over the place about this costume. So if you have something to contribute or a question that hasn't yet been addressed, just jump into one of those online platforms, and maybe someone can answer your question, or maybe you have some information no one's considered yet. So thanks again for checking out this video.